Hey guys, it's Garage79R. Welcome back to my new subscribers that pushed me over to 200 mark. Hello, how you doing? I do goofy stuff with goofy cars. I like Tercels. I like them too much. Um, Welcome to the channel. Hope you like it. So, I've had a busy last 2 weeks. Earl is now turbo. So I know the plan was to kind of keep this NA for a while and push the whopping 84 horsepower at the wheels to the absolute limit. But at the second autocross event, they laid down a horsepower track, and guess what? I don't have horsepower. So I lost by 0.3 of a second. So literally, immediately when I got home, I started bringing up compressor maps, doing some math, figuring out what out of the handful of turbos, actually I have more than a handful, I have like a dozen turbos. What's going to be my best match to give me what I need that's not going to be too bad at low boost initially, but didn't really work when I go to crank it up. And it came down to my Garrett 2554R Turbo, which I originally bought about 9-10 years ago to put on the Yaris. And I come to grips that that's probably just not going to happen. I need the Yaris to be my absolute reliable as a rock daily driver. I don't need any extra systems and bullshit on the car. And I don't want to run high test into the Yaris. So I've made the decision the Yaris probably will never see turbo now, at least in the foreseeable future. So we build a system for Earl. Now again, I don't follow any real trends. I did things a little different. And at the top mount, obviously, it's on a modified 5th gen manifold, which I like using. Actually, in fact, there's my OG setup that I had on my first Tercel. That's a modified 5th gen manifold, but that's a low mount. I did that a low mount to help keep the center of weight low on the car, and I didn't have AC or power steering, so I could actually run a low mount and have room to run the pipe to and from it and whatever. I still have AC in Earl because I'm too fat and old now to not have AC. And you know what? It's nice after a long, hard day at the course. Roll the windows up, set it on meat locker, and cruise on home. We still have AC, no power steering. What I deleted that a while ago. So it's on. Basically, I modified a 5th gen manifold to become a log manifold, and I'll sprinkle in the pictures of the build process. I hacked it up. I made the turbo mounting flange from scratch. It was literally a piece of metal I found on the ground outside. So I have an internal rib that helps the opposing cylinders not see any reversion. B, to also reinforce the manifold. It seems to work. With autocross, the name of the game is response. And of course, then, at least with engines, I will just stick with engines. You want response. You need it now. So this is all geared towards second gear driving, essentially. Yeah, I could have made a tubular manifold that was smoother and probably made more top end horsepower. But in this particular case, these motors, they're done by 5,500 RPM. So trying to maximize upper end horsepower was just kind of stupid, at least in my particular instinct. Now I want to say, it's hard to see, but that's his 1st gen 5E. Say if I was running that motor, and that motor goes 7,200, then I would have built a different manifold that flowed more for mid and top range horsepower. But with this motor, it's all mid-range. So I emphasized that I needed this turbo to light off instantly. Being a ball bearing turbo, it does spool really nicely. But with the way the wastegate's set, I had to piggyback it with a couple springs to get it down around 5 pounds of boost. I couldn't get 3.5 out of it. For those of you that don't know, you can run 3.5 pounds of boost on the Tercel, absolutely stock. And it loves it. It drives great. Your AFRs will be in the mid-11s. It's fantastic. However, now you got to watch part throttle boost. Sometimes it goes lean. But other than that, but I could not get 3.5 pounds out of the internal gate that I used on this. I don't even know what that diaphragm is. I literally have a pile of diaphragms or actuators. And I sound like a 60s whore. Yeah, I got a pile of diaphragms. Anyway, and I, played with them and figured out the best one that will work in my situation. If you actually notice, that's actually block mounted. It's not mounted on the turbo. It's not mounted on the manifold. It's mounted to using the existing holes for the power steering, actually. So I played with springs and preloading it, and I got it to pretty much, it starts to crack open around 3.5 pounds. But on the car, in situation, it kind of starts bleeding off sooner, and it makes it a little lazy, and that's fine for right now. Once I go to standalone and I can turn up the boost, I can take those assistants, I can take those springs off, and it'll be more snappy. It'll build boost faster. But for now, it works. It's good enough. And I literally built this out of scraps. I had to spend some money. I didn't have a downpipe flange. I didn't have oil line. I needed to get a new, block adapter, and I had to buy the air filter. That's actually a silicone intakes air filter. I knew I wanted to get outside air, because another problem of autocross is you're sitting, so the cars bake. So I wanted to make sure I got outside air, and I didn't necessarily worry about trying to get pressurized air on the outside, because we only see about 60 miles an hour, and that's for a moment. So I just worried about just getting as cold outside the engine bay as possible air. And that's what taped up. So I cut a hole out, made a pipe that bolts into place so this hose clamps to it. And then I even taped off pretty much every access to direct upper engine bay air, because heat rises. I'll probably vent the hood. I don't want to. I don't like unnecessary holes in my car, but it is sort of necessary. This heat shield is a piece of stainless left over from a project. Actually, for my landlord, it was a test piece for another item. So I cut it and bent it into shape. And actually, it has the gold foil on the inside of that as well. This pipe, the initial pipe, because the flange I already had for the turbo was steels that dictated a steel or stainless charge pipe. So that, along with the down pipe and the dump pipe, or most commonly known as the screamer pipe, that's all scraps of leftover stainless rose tubings from associated jobs I've done in the shop. Because I knew that stuff I wasn't really going to change too much. Eventually, the screamer pipe will get piped back into the exhaust. I'll have enough meat where I can cut it up a little higher and then redesign the lower half. I didn't want to go ahead and redo the whole exhaust bigger to accommodate having the wastegate going back into it, etc., etc. So it's actually used the factory. It's hard to see down there, but it's still got the factory donut down there. That way, my existing exhaust worked. I did change the muffler. I reused the old ITB style muffler that I had on Floyd that originally used to be on my wife's car. When I took it off her car, repacked it, put it on Floyd, used that for a little bit. And then once I started to swap on Floyd, I cut the muffler off. So now, Earl's got the ITB muffler, and it sounds really good on his car. Got a SARD R2D2 blow-off valve. That's OG stuff as well. I've had that for many years. It used to be on the Turbo Malibu. That actually was Austin's. He bought that for his Turbo Tercel that we built probably 15 years ago. So it's funny because I have an R2D2 and Dustin's convertible out there has an R2D2. It's just a cool blow-off valve. It's got unique sounds. It kind of has different tones as it's coming shut and stuff like that. And it's just, I like it. And plus I had it, so easy button. The piece of aluminum tubing is actually from Floyd, from the turbo setup on Floyd. I'm actually going to use this like Jaguar turbo diesel air-to-water intercooler. I'm going to build my own end tanks and mount it to where the aluminum pipe is, essentially. It's going to pretty much sit where the factory airbox is. That's probably the next major thing that's going to happen to the car, because we're getting into summer months and we need, to keep these temps controlled. So I'll probably build a little expansion tank, and then I'll have a pump of some sort. Most likely, I'm looking at the Terminator Cobra pumps, the Bosch unit, and then I'll have a heat exchanger in the front of the car. But I'm trying to keep it low key. Yeah, I don't want anything obvious in the front to show that it's turbo. So I can pretty much park it anywhere and it doesn't draw any more attention than it needs. I have 2 check valves on the map sensor. Because when you exceed 3.5 pounds of boost, basically the stock ECU can't see 4. When it sees 4 pounds of boost, it goes in a fuel cut, freaks out. So the trick is to use bleed valves. It's not ideal, but it works. Because again, with the way the wastegate is, I can't get 3.5 pounds of boost. I'm stuck with about 4.5, 5. That's fine. It works good enough. The only thing is those valves leak at idle, so it actually goes 10 O's at idle. But as soon as you drop the vacuum below 20 inches, they close up and the AFRs are perfect. And you might ask, what's the AFRs at 4.5, 5 pounds of boost on that absolutely stock car? They're fine. They're like 12.2s. So it goes like 11.8, and towards the top it goes like 12.2. So we're fine. We're good enough where I don't have to get into a fuel system upgrade. One of my favorite upgrades is what I did to the pink car, and it worked really well, is use a Scion FRS pump. So I might do that again. So for instrumentation, I didn't do much. I just literally pulled the boost and AFR gauges out of Floyd. There we go. The altimeter, 20 PSI gauge, and of course the AEM Uego. Again, no tack in the car. I don't plan on putting a tack in the car. Don't need a tack. For what I'm doing, I'm in second gear to the limiter. I'm not going for third normally. And, you've been in these cars long enough, you know when to shift. So, I'm happy. The car runs really good. I actually took my parents for some rippers today. And, of course, my mom, she overreacts to everything. She didn't know. I didn't warn her about the noise from the open dump. So I get in the booth and she's like, ah! The car's probably a 15-second car, but she's shitting her pants because of the noise associated with acceleration. So that was fun. Of course, my dad likes it. He likes everything I build. He's I guess I make him proud, because I've kind of run along and done my thing, and I'm pretty good at what I do. Not to toot my own horn. So I think I make him proud. So my dad is 76, by the way. He is, and he's the reason why I got into anything. And he actually, that turbo right there, he found in a box behind a gas station many years ago. Apparently it was for a Legacy, an older Legacy. And that's what kind of got me on the turbos. Because I stumbled across it in the garage and I'm like, ooh, what's this? I was probably, 10 years old. And I already kind of loosely knew about turbos, but I didn't really know them because my dad's best friend had a T-Type. And I always thought that thing was so cool, and the sounds it made, and it was just so fast for this little V6. Because again, back in the 90s, basically, if you wanted to go fast, you had to have had a big V8, essentially, or nitrous or whatever. So turbos were still kind of new for a lot of people, especially in rural areas. And when I found that little IHI, oh, okay, we got this turbo on the Buick that makes this thing faster than a lot of V8s. What can this little turbo do? And I used to take that turbo in my book bag to school. It sat next to my bed in high school. I was like, one day I'll have a car that'll be perfect for this turbo, and I'm going to use it. And that's when I bought my first Toyota, my white 97 Tercel that I used to have. And that turbo was great. It worked really good. I ran up 14 pounds of boost. Actually, we did have it up at 17, but it didn't make any more power, so we dropped it back down to 14. And it worked good. I drove it like that for like 30,000 miles. And then I had a piggyback on it, and the piggyback wasn't perfect. And eventually, the factory ECU won over the piggyback, and I lifted a ringland at like 31,000 miles. but I still drove home. I actually raced a third gen on the way home, a third gen Camaro, and I still pulled a gap on them to 60. Um, so it's kind of sad, really. This has been kind of a run-on video. I'm mumbling, but I'm excited to see what the future holds with this thing. So I have a standalone. I've been talking with a company, Spitronics. They're out of South Africa, and pretty much the only reason why they're even on my map is when I was looking up standalone options for the 1UZ with the A340, it was basically either Spitronics or Haltech, and I'm not about to drop $4,000 on a computer system on a stock engine. And they had me looking at their stuff, and it's very cheap, it's very affordable, and it actually seems to be like pretty decent stuff. So I'm going to give them a shot. I've been talking to them for the last month, trying to narrow down my options and whatnot. So we're looking at Spitronics for Earl, and that's going to be my first standalone system that I've owned. So I've always done piggybacks. So this will be a new adventure, and I can't wait to mess with it and tune it, because again, I do my own tuning because I have to, because I'm broke. But so stay tuned. We got some exciting things happening. Initially, right now, I'm going to do the valve seals on this car tomorrow, and hopefully it reduces its oil consumption / smoking issue. Most likely it is. It's the ring. I don't think it's the rings. I think it's the valve seals. We got some exciting things for this car. The next race is on the 13th. Most likely won't have the intercooler on the car by then. I just don't have the time and money coming in. This is the slow season right before summer. Everything always slows up. So that's why I went ahead and did this build. Basically took kind of a self-vacation to work on my cars in the shop. And so we're going to get out there. Hopefully I can get back into first place. I got a timing chain set for the truck. That's coming up. I already have it. I just got to find time to do it. And stay tuned. See you on the next one.